If you've seen the thumbnail, you know what we're doing today. We are going to be potting up my Monstera mint. So here is the Monstera mint top cut that I picked up today. It is just a rooted cutting. I let it callus over for about 30 minutes right there on the bottom to prevent rot. I don't know how well you guys will be able to see this, but right on the back, right here, you can see we got a bunch of new roots ready to push out. And that's telling me that this is just about ready for a moss pole as well. So we're going to be throwing it on a moss pole, potting it up, and hopefully after this leaf starts unfurling, we'll start to get some new growth. As you guys can see, I pot everything up in terracotta, especially working with monsteras and tropical plants. I want to make sure that my soil dries out decently quick, and I just find the terracotta helps with that. So potting soil wise, what I've been using recently, and I know chunky aeroid mixes are the best, but while I'm trying to produce roots, especially in terracotta, I like to just use the Ocean and Forest by Fox Farm. By Fox Farm. It just tends to hold the moisture a little bit longer, and as the root system becomes more developed, I like to move into a chunky aeroid mix. I just don't want the soil to dry out too quick, because that'll hinder my root development. Alrighty, so while we get some soil into this pot, I'm going to give you a breakdown where I found this plant, how much I paid, and what the resale value is on this plant. So if you guys have been following my TikTok, you would know that I picked up this 4-foot elbow, and this Aurea earlier today. I paid $175 for them. They're both rehabs. I have a series going on my TikTok right now showing the rehabilitation process of those. But the same seller that sold me those messaged me, I want to say about 5 or 6 hours later, and he was like, hey, I have this mint, I'm debating chopping it. Do you want a cutting of it? I was like, well, that depends, because as we all know, different variations of Monstera can get pretty expensive. So I was talking to him through Facebook Marketplace, or Facebook Messenger, and I was just saying, basically, what are you asking for it? Can I get a top cut of it? I prefer top cuts and bottom cuts. I don't prefer middle cuts, like mid cuts, only because I feel like the rooting process takes so much longer. Unless it's already a rooted mid cut that's showing growth from a new growth point, then I'm cool with it. But I feel like the process just takes so long. So I was messaging him back and forth, probably for about an hour, and he was like, I can give you, oh, you know what? Before I continue doing this, I probably should get this moss pole situated in here. Yeah, that's probably what I should do. I'm only gonna I guess I'll pack the whole pole, because the bottom will stay moist as I water. Alright, so changing gears, we're going to start packing this moss pole. But yeah, so he was like, I can give you the top cut. Initially, he was asking $675 for the whole plant. And for this plant, that's reasonable, but definitely was out of my budget, because I could never drop $675 on the plant. At least, how I am right now. But he was like, I can do the top cut for $250. I was like, $250 is still, a little bit out of my price range. Nobody else was messaging him all day for this plant, and he's trying to get rid of his whole collection. I was like, look, I bought 2 plants off you this morning. I will buy the top cut off of you, but I want to do it for $200. He wasn't really feeling $200. He said it was a little low for the plant, which I agree. It is quite low for, what I got. But he was like, let's meet in the middle. We'll do $230. I was like, fine, $230's a deal. So I paid $230 for this top cut. It just pushed out a new leaf prior to him chopping. So hopefully that doesn't hinder the size of this leaf. It might a little bit. I know the next leaf is probably going to be just a tad smaller than the size of the leaves right now. I'm cool with that. Doesn't bother me. But yeah, so definitely got a great deal on this plant. Just mixing up my moss. If you guys don't pre-moisten your moss before you make a moss pole, trust me, your life will be so much easier. It'll be so much easier. Trying to pack a moss pole with dry moss and then water it afterwards is a nightmare. You don't want it like dripping wet, but you definitely just want it moist enough to where it's not gonna get dust everywhere and stab you. I'll show you what this is, what this looks like. So it's just moist enough to where it's holding itself together. And I believe this is the one that I took off of my elbow previously. The bottom was rooted crazily through this moss pole, so I did have to chop the bottom up a little bit, but that's fine because I'm going to use this as the bottom again this time. And I buy these on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. They're just clear plastic moss poles, very run-of-the-mill moss pole. It's just easier, you know, where I am, and cheaper, believe it or not, to buy the pre-made ones. So I'm gonna start down here at the bottom, do a nice even spread. I'll pack the whole thing because I don't have a bag for this moss after this to go into. Oh wait, yes I do, because the cutting came in a bag, ha 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 ha. So do I wanna fill half this pole or the whole pole? I'll just fill the whole pole, so I don't have to do it later. So indecisive today. Too many decisions. I don't pack my moss poles, you know, too tight. I see some people like pack them super, super tight. And they're like, oh, it's just, you know, helps everything be more sturdy. But I feel like if I give the roots breathing room for oxygen to flow through, I feel like that's sufficient. I'm just checking the moss. I want to make sure I don't see anything that'll affect this plant. I'm not seeing anything. I think this moss is good to go. It's got a little bit of perlite mixed in it, but that's what happens when you use the same bowl for everything. I really need to get a repotting mat. If you guys have any recommendations for repotting mats, please let me know. All right, I think that is probably all the moss that this pole is going to take. I hate these long things in the moss, whatever these are, sticks, vines, I don't know. I don't like them in there. So I'm gonna go ahead, and this is super simple. Don't look at me and listen to me at the same time. This is super simple to lock together once you've done it a few times, if you didn't overpack your pole. But if you overpack your pole, it definitely becomes a nightmare. And just like that, we have a packed moss pole, guys. And there we go. So we're gonna set this right inside this pot. And this was bottom side down. I'm actually just gonna use the dirt that's in there right now to secure this. I might have to go up a pot size. Let's see, let's bring in this cutting. I really don't like to go up pot sizes if I don't have to. But I don't want to break this root at any point. Yeah. All right, we're gonna have to go up a pot size. Hold on. So this is the next pot size that I have. I don't recommend going up this big of a pot size. Literally just go as big as you need. Go to a pot size that fits the plant comfortably, but it doesn't give it too much room, because then you're gonna run into soil not drying out quick enough and rot issues, etc. But terracotta helps with that, if you can keep up with it, because it does dry out pretty quick. So yeah, we put a little bit more of this Fox Farm soil in here. Give my moss pole something to dig into. And I don't secure my moss poles with anything other than potting soil, just because I feel like once the plant roots into the moss pole, now I know these two back here are leaning, don't judge me. This is how they were when I bought them. I haven't touched them yet. That's for the next video that I'm filming for TikTok. So if you haven't seen that, it's linked in the description. But that is what happens when you use moss poles in LECA. Which is possible, but they have to be secured, and there's a very specific procedure to using moss poles in LECA, because if you use your moss pole and you get sphagnum moss down all the way into your LECA, it can cause a lot of problems, a lot of rot problems, a lot of fungal problems, and you don't want that. That's the reason you're doing semi-hydro, is to avoid all that. So that's a whole different video. But for this one, we're not going to secure it with anything. I'm literally just going to push it down into the dirt. Just like that. And put my cup to the side. Now, when I put my Monstera cuttings into soil, I make sure that my end that it was cut from was calloused over for at least 30 minutes. You just want to make sure that there's nothing coming out of it. Give it a chance to dry out. If you don't let this dry out, what happens is the plant is going to start pushing water through here and out of here. It's going to be like, almost like breathing. It's pushing in and out. It's like fluctuating. And that can cause rot right here, because moisture, obviously, in something that is alive eventually will rot. But besides the point, when I put these into my pot, there's a designated front and back for these Monstera. The back will always have little roots pushing out the back of it. Just because the aerial root is on this side does not make this the back of the plant. Right here, if you look down, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 roots right here trying to push out. They're ready to grab into a pole. They just need moisture and they'll activate. Humidity, wet moss, something like that, and these will activate. So what I usually do is, when you get a Monstera cutting, it has, most of the time, has one aerial root. I'm going to take this aerial root, depending on which side it's coming from, I'm going to wrap it around the moss pole in the pot, and that should give me just enough wiggle room. I might have to readjust this real quick to get this pole, or get this plant lined right up on that moss pole. Back to the moss, facing forward, and I'm going to plant this probably right about here, and then secure with a velcro, because I don't want this end, oh, I thought that cup was falling. I don't want this end too far into the soil. Again, I'm trying to avoid having any rotting issues. So that to me looks pretty good. I'm going to do some adjustments. I'll be right back. This is the balancing act of trying to secure a moss pole, pot, and plant all at the same time. And a lot of things, or another thing that I don't see a lot of people talking about when potting up Monstera and other plants that are really susceptible to rot, is trying to avoid keeping the soil or the growing medium out of the crevice of the petiole. I feel like, and I don't know, so don't quote me, but I feel like having any type of growing medium in that petiole is going to induce rot, because what it's going to do is, when you water this plant, it's going to grab that moisture and hold on to it. Granted, it might grow or it might dry out quickly because it's not deep, it's exposed to air. But I feel like it just increases the chances of that petiole developing rot, and or your stem developing rot, and that would be detrimental to the health of the plant. It would definitely require propagation to fix. And then you would be starting the process all over again. And none of us want to do that. We work hard to get our plants where they are. We don't want to have to start over. One thing I did not do is grab myself wire ties or plant velcro prior to this. Interesting. Okay, I got my plant velcro. Oh boy, that was stressful. I didn't want that root to snap off. When you're doing plant velcro, I've seen a few people, well, for one, I've seen a few people use zip ties. Don't do that. I mean, you can, but I don't recommend doing that. And I've seen some people put the plant velcro around the petiole to the moss pole, and you also don't want to do that. You want to try to find the spot on the stem that is as close to the moss pole as possible, and you want to really secure that area because that's where the roots are going to come out of. So you want that spot to stay decently moist and or very humid, which is why we continuously wet the moss balls to encourage those roots to grow in. And once this plant realizes that it's growing in a vertical pot, so to say, these leaves are going to start to size up ridiculously quickly. So I'm just going to take my velcro right down here on that node, and I'm going to secure it up against this moss pole. And it doesn't have to be extremely tight. It just has to be tight enough to support this, the forward weight of this plant. And it's really not too complicated, especially when you have plant velcro. It makes the process a lot simpler. Alrighty, so now that we got the plant secured to the moss pole and the moss pole secured in the pot, I'm going to go ahead and fill up just a little bit more around this pot. Now, like I said, this pot size is way too big for this cutting, but because I want to put on a moss pole so soon, I had to go with a larger pot size. So I'm not going to fill this pot all the way up to the top. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave about 2 or 3 inches at the top because I know that soil doesn't have a root system in it, so it's never going to dry out. And then that can lead to things like pests and fungus gnats and mold, and you just don't want any of that happening on your fresh cutting because it'll be detrimental. I'm going to show you guys this real quick up close, and then we're going to go give it a water and just double check that our soil level is right where we want it. Alrighty, so up close, you guys can see I kept my soil level down below the opening of this petiole, and I did my best not to get any soil in there. So in there is still open. I'm not worried about any rot. I'm pressed up against the back of this pole, secured pretty tightly. Everything is looking as it should. Now, when you guys pot up, sorry, my couch is a mess. I just seen it and it threw me off. When you guys pot up your cuttings, the leaves are going to be in weird directions. That's normal. That happens all the time. It's just because the plant was orientated differently for the different lighting setup, but give it a week or two and everything will be looking as it should. I got a little dry spot in my moss pole. It's all good. So let's give this some water and recheck our soil level. So while this guy is draining, after I just watered him, I'm gonna clear up some space over here on this IKEA shelf. These are the, I believe it's the Vertigo? I don't know, I'll link it in the description. I took this shelf out right here for my moss pole plants. I did the same thing on that side over there. I just didn't take this outer bar out. But yeah, I don't know what is going on with this guy. I don't know what's going on with him. This Vinca vine, but you can just hang in the middle right there for now. So yeah, we're gonna clean out this little spot and hopefully he fits in here under these Barina grow lights. We'll see. When I'm cleaning anything in my plant area, I love to use a diluted rubbing alcohol mix. I do like 1 part rubbing alcohol and 4 parts water, distilled water. And I feel like that just helps to sanitize everything in here, just to make sure, you know, if there is anything living or growing or, you know, whatever bad things can happen, pests, I feel like this just helps eliminate all of that, and it doesn't really harm the plants, as long as you're not using too strong of a concentration. But before anybody says anything, I did check this plant for pests, and I know that I am pest-free minus the fungus gnat here and there, but yeah, overall we're all good. I did give it a wash prior to filming, so no need to worry about that. This leaf needs to get trimmed. He needs to come off. Look at him. Starting to yellow. This is one of the first leaves on this plant lip. It's about time for him to go, but that's for another day, maybe tomorrow. I'm just using a terracotta saucer underneath. I noticed if you guys are happening to be struggling with fungus gnats, which I was, I have a whole video that I'm going to post about that. Having a terracotta saucer underneath helps to eliminate any of the standing water in these reservoirs. Like the plastic ones I have to get rid of these, but the terracotta will actually absorb the water and help to reduce the standing water, which will in turn reduce the amount of fungus gnats you have. I did a whole week of fungus gnat treatment, and I can tell you I have eliminated about 99% of them. We are entering the winter season here, so you know it's getting really muggy outside. So here on the East Coast, it is prime pest season, and we went through it. There he is, all set up in my cabinet space with my other Monstera. Oh, that leaf needs to get trimmed as well. So many of my plants are growing so fast I haven't been able to keep up with them. Don't mind that. Okay, real quick, while we're on the topic of Monstera, look how beautiful this leaf is. And I just know that it's not gonna last. Like, come on, tell me that isn't, but look what happened to the leaf prior. I know, it's detrimental, but I don't know. Anyway, different video. Check out my TikTok to see the rehabs on these two. Boom, boom. Monstera mint is all potted up, good to go. I know my hair looks crazy. I know, I wasn't prepared to make this video, but I had to make it tonight because this cutting had to get into a pot and I wanted to show you guys. So I was not prepared, but I feel like it went well. If you guys want to see more videos, drop a comment down below, drop a like, let me know what you want to see. If you have any questions about Monstera, I have a lot of them. I can answer a decent amount. I'm still new to this, so I'm not going to say I'm the best person to give advice, but I can definitely try to assist. But yeah, if you guys want a houseplant tour on the collection, let me know. I plan on doing one. If you haven't checked out my TikTok, it's in the description below. If you haven't checked out my YouTube shorts, they are on my channel. I don't know, I'm new to YouTube. And I believe that's all. So I'll see you guys with the next plant.